Hello and welcome to this special episode of Talk Africa, co-produced with Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation. I'm Beatrice Marshall from CGTN.
And I'm Agnes Tuniga from Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation. Today we are coming to you from Salaam Tanzania to celebrate 60 remarkable years of diplomatic relations between China and Tanzania. In 2013, Chinese President Xi Jinping visited Tanzania, the first stop of his first trip to Africa as President of China. During that trip, President Xi put forward the principle of sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith to guide China's cooperation with African countries.
Now, these two nations proudly share a comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership which has significantly bolstered the socio-economic development of their people. With China standing as Tanzania's largest trading partner and investor, the collaboration between these two nations has consistently been at the forefront of China-Africa cooperation. So this week on this special program, we are taking a trip down memory lane to explore the evolution of this profound relationship. Welcome to Talk Africa. The most remarkable venture Tanzania and China have been part of is the 1,860-kilometer Tanzania-Zambia Railway, which opened in 1976, connecting landlocked Zambia with the Tanzanian port of Dar es Salaam. I'm now joined by the CEO and Managing Director of Tazara Railway, Engineer Bruno Tandeo Chingandu, to dive into the backstory behind this monumental project. Engineer Chingano, thank you very much for your time. I want to start by looking back at the Tazara Railway. First of all, give us a short history and background of Tazara Railway.
Tazara Railway, commonly known as the Uhuru Railway, is a very significant railway for the region. It is also the Independence Railway. This railway came about when the imperialist governments of South Africa and Southern Rhodesia then closed the border between Zambia and Southern Rhodesia. You imagine that was the only route at the time for Zambia to import and export its goods, and the only port available at that time was Durban. With that closure, it meant that Zambia would not be able to import and export its goods. In fact, at that time, Zambia was importing its goods by using air, fuel by air, exporting copper by air. So it was a dire situation for the country, very, very dire situation for the country. And because of that, we approached the West to build the line. We declined. Then President Nyerere and President Kaunda met up with Mao Zedong of China, who accepted to build the line. The line was started in 1970. By 1975, it was finished. 1976, it was running. So basically, that's the brief of the coming up of Tazara.
So what's been its importance to the economy of Tanzania and Zambia?
It's very broadly, with the finishing of this line, the coming up of this line, first of all, it connects the SADC countries with East African community. The SADC countries are all on the same gauge as Tazara. And at Kidatu here, we are able to transship the goods from the 1.067 gauge, which is the Cape gauge, to the 1 meter gauge, which is the East African gauge. Meaning that with that, you can be able to move goods all the way from Cape Town to Uganda with no problems, other than the transshipment. So it is important from that perspective because it allows the interconnectivity of the regions. Secondly, when this Tazara was put up, many of these towns along this line were just little bushes, little villages. They've grown into big towns like Mbeya, like Kasama in Zambia. And also, apart from developing, these towns developing around the railways and growing into real big towns and cities, even the people along the line, Tazara facilitates those people to be part of the mainstream economy. How? When the trains are passing, first of all, when the trains are passing, we create trade between those on the train and those villagers who are there. Secondly, we also facilitate the movement of the people from one country to the border to purchase goods and back to the various places. So that allows the bringing in of the people into the mainstream economy.
So what's been the impact as well, because the railway was completed in 1976. What's been the impact to the larger SADC region?
We have allowed and facilitated the movements of people, the movements of goods. We have moved around about 40 million tons of goods since. We have moved 60 million people around using the Tazara, which at that time would not have been possible minus this line.
So we're looking now at many African countries, particularly in the East African region. They are linking up through the SGR, so to say. There's a lot of ports, there's a lot of other infrastructure coming up to link the region. How does Tazara link up with other African countries?
It doesn't fit in at the moment. The reason is that the entire sub-Saharan Africa, SADC, all of it is is Cape gauge. If Tazara links to the standard gauge, it means that Tazara might be delinked from the other African countries in the SADC region, which would not be a huge benefit. However, we have the AU 2063 agenda. The AU 2063 agenda is connect Africa from Cape to Cairo, and with that there will be standard gauge. On a broader picture, Tazara on its own, making standard gauge, would not be beneficial. But at a top level, we need to connect the entire sub-Saharan Africa with the East African Africa on the SGR, not just one country. So
tell me a little bit about the challenges that have been facing the Tazara Railway.
The major challenge has been undercapitalization. This is about 48 year old organization. The amount of funding that has gone into this in order to ensure smooth running, to ensure recapitalization, to ensure renewing of the track, renewing of the rolling stock has been minimal. And as a result, we have faced challenges of one, the track being not the level where it's supposed to be, the locomotives, the wagons not being at the level at which they're supposed to be, hence forcing us to reduce the speeds from the 60, 80 kilometers that we are meant to run to about 40 to 50 kilometers per hour.
So there's a lot of changes happening in the region, and you've talked about the Tazara Railway probably not fitting in with the SGR at the moment. So where do you see the future of Tazara Railway?
The future of Tazara Railway is big. Tazara Railway, fortunately, connects to the major mineral resources in the subcontinent. It connects to the Congo, it connects to Zambia. There is plenty of copper, plenty of cobalt, there is a lot that is required to be moved. In fact, the plan right now is that the copper production between these two countries will go over 10 million tons in the next 5 to 7 years. 10 million tons. Where will it go? How will it move? It will need the railway. And which is that railway? Tazara.
So how much investment do you think would be required to upgrade Tazara to that level?
We did a revitalization study, and with that study, we came up with around $558 million that would be required to rehabilitate this. We're in discussions with the Chinese, and with the discussions with the Chinese, they will come in with some funding. With that funding, we believe which will be over $1 billion, that funding will go towards the rehabilitation of Tazara. And then Tazara will be fine.
All right, Engineer Chingado, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, as we wrap up this insightful discussion with the CEO and Managing Director of Tazara Railway, we are now shifting gears and diving into something groundbreaking, the Sinotan Industrial Park. Sinotan Industrial Park is a major player in pushing further Tanzania's industrial aspiration and showcasing its significance in the growing relationship between China and Tanzania. And joining me now is Mr. Johnson Huang, the chairman of Sinotan Industrial Park. Mr. Huang, thank you very much for your time. First of all, I want to start by looking at the Sinotan Industrial Park. What is it about? Give us an overview of the industrial park.
Sinotan Industrial Park is the first largest industrial park in Tanzania, which started in May 2022. Sinotan Industrial Park has got a land size of 10 square kilometers, that is 2,500 acres. It is situated at Kwala in Kibaha district, Pwani region, Tanzania. So it's like 80 kilometers from the Dar es Salaam port, and it's been connected with the SGR, that is standard gauge railway, and the old narrow gauge central railway. Also, we have got a dry port just close to the Sinotan Industrial Park. So it's an initiative by Her Excellency President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan. She's aiming to make Tanzania to be a semi-industrialized country by 2025. So Sinotan Industrial Park has been like purely a drive for Tanzania's industrialization. We Group 6 International as the pioneer to undertake this project. And in May 2022, the industrial park break the ground, and we are aiming in 5 years to complete the construction, and maximum in 10 years we want to invite industries from around the world to settle in Tanzania, to settle in the industrial park.
So tell me about the investors. How big is the Chinese investment here, and what other type of investors do you think that the industrial park is going to accommodate? Also, number two, what is it that is attracting these investors, particularly the Chinese investors, into Tanzania?
China, if we look at the past, China has been leading in the investment in Tanzania for last almost 10 years. And also, currently, the Chinese investors coming to Tanzania also is leading among other countries. And if we look at the industrial park itself, the manufacturing sector, we are expecting many investors from China will be in the building materials sector. Also, many will be coming for the equipment manufacturing, like car assembling, like those equipment assembling, and etc. Also, we are expecting a lot of Chinese investors coming for the textile sectors, because the Chinese also is leading in the textile worldwide, and Tanzania is very rich in the raw material like cotton. Also, we are expecting a lot of Chinese investors coming for the food processing, because Tanzania is very rich in the agro products. We are aiming for inviting Chinese investors coming to the park to use the local materials to manufacture products for domestic purpose and for export purpose.
Right, so I want to know about the jobs. How many jobs is this expected to generate in Tanzania?
The industrial park itself, upon completion, we are expecting to have 100,000 direct jobs for the park. And indirectly, we are expecting 500,000 jobs. will be working for the parks, logistic-wise and surface-wise. So we say that the industrial park is indeed an industrial city. Upon completion, we'll be having 100,000 people working in the park. That is indeed one of the biggest park in Tanzania.
So, Mr. Huang, you're talking about this project being a part of President Suluhu's ambition to make Tanzania an industrialized country by 2025. Tell us about how you see this project transforming the country.
Yeah, this project is in line with Tanzania's third national plan, which is aiming to make Tanzania a semi-industrialized country by 2025. Also, Tanzania has got a fourth national plan, will be enhance the industrialization for the country. So, Sino-Tai Industrial Park is coming at the right time. It's in line with the government ambition to make Tanzania to be semi-industrialized country. And this, of course, is coming with the conditions or the requirements, because industrialization not is like just industrialization. You must have the very stable power supply. You must have the railway connections, road connections. You must have the port. You must have the water resources. You must have even a gas and so on. So the Sino-Tai Industrial Park is coming at the right time because Tanzania now is building the Nyerere hydraulic dam, which is having 2,115 megawatts of power, and the first generator is already up running, and in 2 years' time it will be full running in a big scale. So that is the number one, that Tanzania will be sufficient in terms of power supply. That is very key for industrialization. Also, Tanzania's ambition is to have the standard gauge railway to be connected from Dar es Salaam port to the inner part of the country and to the neighboring countries, which the project is already half constructed. And in the next 3 to 5 years, the whole neighboring countries will be connected with the standard gauge railway. Also, Tanzania is expanding a lot of road networks, and the port is now running in much better conditions. So we say that Tanzania has come to the time for industrialization.
Right, so this is definitely a milestone for Tanzania, particularly in its journey to industrialization by 2025. But how does this particularly reflect on the growing relationship between China and Tanzania?
Yes, as China and Tanzania enjoys a very historical diplomatic relationship, since independence of Tanzania, China has entered into a very strong relationship and has been always a pioneer of the leading example of China-Africa cooperation. So definitely with the industrialization as Tanzania's third national plan, and we as the enterprises, we're also contributing our part for the China-Tanzania relationship. And we believe that this is a win-win cooperation because industrialization is Tanzania needs, is African needs, and we as enterprises, we are using our resources, we are using our background as China is our background, because China is the world's largest manufacturing center. And a lot of manufacturers in China, they can be, coming to Tanzania and Africa to build up industrialization base. So I think that is a win-win situation, and we are using our efforts to make China and Tanzania and even China and Africa to be at advanced stage.
Indeed, Mr. Huang, a win-win for China and Africa relationship and also for China and Africa's long-term partnership. Thank you very much indeed for being a part of our discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, we're going to take a short break now, and when we come back, we will be joined by a panel of experts to talk about 60 years of China-Tanzania diplomatic ties. To stay with us.
Hello and welcome to this special program on 60 years China-Tanzania bilateral ties. And this is a joint production between CGTN and Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation. I'm Agnes Tuniga from Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation, TBC.
And I'm Beatrice Marshall from CGTN. So what has the last 60 years been like for Sino-Tanzania ties, and what does the future hold? We're going to unpack this in just a moment with my panel of guests. Joining us today, Professor Humphrey Moshi, founding director at the Center for Chinese Studies and a professor of economics at the University of Dar es Salaam. Welcome to the program. Also joining us, Godwin Gonde, a lecturer at the Center for Foreign Relations in Tanzania. Welcome to the program. Thank you very much for being a part of this discussion. Let me start off with you, Professor Moshi, because this year marks a 60th anniversary of China-Tanzania ties. Now, these ties go back to the liberation struggles of the 1960s. First of all, what is the significance of this 60 years for Tanzania?
60 years of friendship between Tanzania and China remind us of a deep relationship which over time it has broadened, deepened across many sectors. Starting, as you correctly said, starting with the liberation movement, which then led to the independence of some of the South African countries. And of course, we have to remember the first monument of our relationship, the building of Tazara Railway. And one should recall that Nyerere had a vision of building that railway. He went to the Western countries. The Western countries said, no, this is not economic viable. Then when Mwalimu went to China, the Chinese, or the Chinese leadership, say, yeah, it's a viable project, not necessarily economically, but politically as well as socially. And then from there, we had the railway built by 1976. And over time, we're seeing the relationship deepening. And they are deepening by having what I call the cooperative or cooperation platforms, FOCAC, BRI, to name a few. And they've given us, Tanzania, Africa, and other developing countries, alternatives. Whenever you need a project, in the past, we used to knock on the doors of Washington, the doors of Frankfurt, the doors of London. But now we have alternatives.
There are historical factors that, of course, do shape the bilateral ties ever since now 60 years. How do you think this has impacted, or how has this evolved over the years within the relationship that we have between the two countries?
Agnes, over the years of our relations between our two countries, a lot has happened in Tanzania, but also for the side of Chinese themselves, because as what Professor said, our relations was founded under the mutual gain. And the governments, the relations or the benefits that are gained are far sure beyond what the government can do, but the people themselves, the Chinese people and the Tanzanians, from the local perspective to the nationwide. And young generation, for instance, people of my age, we found this relation being so solid to the manner that we found Chinese in the streets, we found Chinese in the projects, and others also got chance to visit Beijing, to visit other parts of China in terms of relations and exchange. And for there, this kind of exchange, from cultural, from technological, from trade and business, the two countries are coming in that sense of mutual gain in that kind of relation. So the Tazara thing, which Professor said it in details, the Urafiki textile industry, the construction that's taking place in Tanzania mark this kind of solid relations and gives a promising future of the type of relationship in which none of the country feels that it's so inferior to the other, but working together in ensuring that they fight the common enemy, which is poverty, the common enemy, which is inequality, the common enemy, which is corruption, and all things that unite people in the name of diplomacy, in the name of common good.
So I want to continue on that question of the pillars that are underpinning this relationship, because China and Tanzania recently upgraded their relationship to a comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership. What are the key pillars of cooperation between China and Tanzania, and how does this relate to their long-term development goals for both countries?
One of the pillars, if I may say, it relays on the change of Tanzania foreign policy. Tanzania foreign policy, the previous old foreign policy focused on political liberation, in which China contributed a lot in these liberation struggles, including military aid, including intelligence information, and all types of liberation that Tanzania participated inside Tanzania, but again within the region. But with the change of foreign policy that touches issues of economic diplomacy, China chips in terms of business, in terms of trade, in terms of agriculture sector, trying to find the new opportunities that Tanzania is now focusing on. And because Tanzania thought now we should not depend on aid rather than depending on trade with the countries that can have a mutual gain in that kind of trade, China came to be a promising partner, because from the Chinese policy towards African states, it was some sort of policy which we call I love you little, I love you long, type of a relation that a person gives you a promising future, that it can give you very little, but it can be for a long time. The aim is to strengthen relation, than giving a type of aid that can limit a type of relation that we are having, and that stands as a pillar of economic diplomacy that Tanzania intends to trade, to invest with the Chinese, but with a pillar of mutual understanding, a collective gain that the two countries are dealing in all aspects, as we have said before.
Professor, to illustrate on the importance of this friendship ever since, we all witnessed here that in March 2013, President Xi Jinping made Tanzania as his first stop in African trip that he just started visiting Africa ever since he became in power. So he had mentioned about few words, and I quote here, he said, remaining friends and faithful partners forever in relation to Africa. Give us your relocation of that visit at that time.
Yeah, first of all, that he came to this country first, that was a symbol of continuation of the friendship which started before he became president, which was started by Chairman Mao Zedong and our Mwalimu Nyerere. So you are seeing then, he was just stamping and saying, we are going to continue. And we have been seeing that continuation taking place across many sectors, politically, economically, as well as what we call socially in terms of people-to-people exchanges. And if you look economically, if you look in Tanzania, or you just go to Dar es Salaam, the face of Dar es Salaam has changed. And who has changed that? The Chinese. And you will see a number of monuments now. Go to the University of Dar es Salaam, there is a library, which is a very modern one, in East and Central Africa. There is the Nyerere Conference Center. There is the Mkapa Stadium. And to mention them, there are a number of students get scholarship to go to China, about 2,000 on yearly basis. So all this shows clearly that over time, we are seeing the friendship not only deepening, but broadening in a number of areas.
Godwin, now still on that question that we're talking about Xi Jinping, President Xi, yes, in Tanzania. There are about 4 principles that he did outline. Sincerity, real results, amity, and good faith. This is within the China's Africa policy. Of course, how has this, do you think, has influenced or fostered the bilateral ties between the two countries? Because this is like a statement that is full force.
Agnes, you know, in diplomacy, you know, when a president or when a new government, a new president decides to make his first maiden visit to your states, tells a lot in terms of the relation that you two countries have. It tells the matter of trust, it tells about the priority, it tells about the future that these two countries are having. And therefore, from the historical perspective of the relation that Tanzania and China had, since the struggle for China to have a veto power in the United Nations Security Council and the contribution of Tanzania in that move, even after that, when Tanzania stood as a frontline state during the liberation struggle with the aid of China, the help of China to ensure that the southern part of Africa is liberated, that relation made His Excellency Xi Jinping to choose Tanzania being one among his first states to visit. And for that case, his speech trying to show the type of relation that he is intending, or he intends his government to focus on solidarity, on sincerity, on good faith. Those are all issues which are connected to the issue of diplomacy, because diplomacy is all about relations, it's all about mutual gain, it's all about a trust that the two countries or more can have. And therefore, he intends to assure and reassure the people of Tanzania, on behalf of people from the region, that China is intending to have the same relation that the forefathers, the Nyerere and the Chairman Mao, stood to found these countries in that aspect of mutual gain. And therefore, you want to assure that even his government and the government of Tanzania, that those pillars will stand still and still strong for the future or the betterment of people of Tanzania and people of China.
So I want to look at China and Tanzania trade volumes, which have grown over the last 10 years by about 125%, 23.7% year on year. China remains Tanzania's largest trade and investment partner. What are the key sectors that are driving this trade?
You have industry, telecommunication, transport. We have seen the infrastructure. And when we're talking about infrastructure here, we're talking about the hard and the soft infrastructure. And the good thing about Chinese approach is that it is comprehensive. When they talk about infrastructure, they consider the land, the air, and the water. That's why you hear about harbors. That's how you hear that they are talking about airports. You hear about railroads and railways. But also, they've got another characteristic. They are aligned with the country's vision, which is 2025. Now they're crafting 2550. But yes, also they are aligned with the 5 development plans of a country. Something which you won't realize when you get loans, when you get assistance from the Western countries. For example, the question of Tanzania, we have graduated to become a semi-industrialized country, and we have joined what we call middle-income country, of course, on the lower floor, but we have crossed, we've been able to meet our Vision 25, actually before even the time of 2025. We graduated to the medium income by 3 years before that. Meaning, therefore, if it were not for what the Chinese are doing in Tanzania, are doing in Africa, we would have not reached there. And again, as you correctly said, when it comes to bilateral trade, it has been increasing year in, year out, and China is trade partner #1. And as you correctly said also, is the one the biggest investor when it comes to FDI, foreign direct investment.
So I want to get your input as well, Godwin, here. What sort of sectors are you seeing in Tanzania now that are seeing the most growth due to Chinese investment, due to Chinese influence?
Education sector, to me, is one of the sectors that is growing due to these bilateral relations. And indeed, if you find people, you take two people, one studying in China in contemporary time, and the other one studying in the West. These two people will have very different views in terms of development capacity, in terms of vision on how the country should develop. Because from the Chinese history and from the Chinese initiatives on how they develop themselves from being that poor state to one among the largest states on earth, what they are trying to offer is trying to rewrite the history, trying to rewrite the truth about humanity. Contrary to what the West has been taught, has been teaching people in Africa about their realities. And therefore, the Chinese intention of trying to make these countries have a self-sustaining economy through education makes that education sector being one among the successful sectors in this type of relations. But also tourism. Tourism has been one of the sectors that is growing first. But also science and technology, which we totally needed in the contemporary world because the world is moving too fast. And therefore, as a state, as a country, we also need to move within that speed. And therefore, the Tanzanians are also learning from that type of sector, science and technology, and telecommunication. And therefore, through the exchange program that the Chinese are penetrating in Tanzania, in Africa, the technological advancement they're trying to improve our capacities, and therefore, we see that promising future in type of relation and the sectors that development is concerned.
So, Professor Moshe, I want to go back to the Tazara Railway. You alluded to that at the beginning of our conversation, and that is really a hallmark of China-Tanzania ties. So tell us about the specific projects of the Belt and Road initiative that are currently underway in Tanzania and what is in production.
There are a number of projects completed and completed. The rehabilitation of the harbour is completed. We have also the airport of Zanzibar has been completed. Laying of the backbone for the internet in Tanzania is completed. And a number of roads are completed. But there are some which are still in progress. One of them is with regard to the central line in terms of SGR, as well as a Magufuli bridge, which will link Tanzania and Burundi by crossing Lake Victoria. I visited a few months ago. They are almost 85% done. So we can see the progress is going on well. Looking forward really is the issue of electricity, diversifying the sources of electricity, the question of Tazara rehabilitation, and agriculture modernization, so that at least then a lot of our people benefit. And when I'm talking about a lot of people, I'm talking the rural community benefit in terms of ensuring that whatever development takes place, whatever economic growth takes place, it becomes inclusive, what we call common prosperity. The good news is, when you look at BRI, most of the countries in East, Central, and North Africa are participating. And they're participating because of one important reason, that the objectives of BRI are compatible with their national development plans, compatible with their regional development plans. By regional, I mean regional economic communities, SADC, East African Community, and COMESA. They are also compatible with the continental vision, Africa we want 2063. So automatically then, you come to see that you are realizing both this objectives stipulated in the 3 areas being achieved at the same time. And therefore, Tanzania then will be seen as being a leader. The leadership comes because we are the first to interact with China through our forefathers, Mwalimu Nyerere and Mao Zedong.
All right, so I want to get your final comments very briefly to the both of you and continue with what Godwin has alluded to in terms of the future of Sino-Tanzanian relationship, particularly looking at the geopolitics that is ongoing in the world today. How do you view the future trajectory of Sino-Tanzanian ties under that theme?
The future, Beatrice, if you said clearly, is the same future that Tanzania or Africa faced during the Cold War era, because at that time we were driven to align with the West in their conflicts which were not ours. And Tanzania decided to be a non-allied state, but chose also to integrate with China and other countries in Asia. And that thing is really happening now, that with war going on and other challenges that they are dividing the world among the powers, it's still safe for Tanzania to be an independent state, to focus with the friends that are not driving them towards the conflicts that might end us into a disaster. And therefore, to that case, the Tanzania-China relations remains one among the sole friendships that Tanzania needs to take it very seriously and move with it forward, because we had a promising future during that time, and why not having the same promising future at this moment where the world is facing a number of challenges from the West and from the wars that are dividing the world into different ideologies.
Right, Professor, you're winding up.
Yeah, I will share his views. And for me, I find the future to be very bright. And looking at the geopolitics of today, and looking at the position of China in the BRICS, look at the position of China within FOCAC, within BRI, we can see then we are going to consolidate that relationship. And if, for example, if you were to look at the BRICS, where you find now that China is the largest economy within that group. And you are seeing now there are a number of countries, almost 14 countries have applied to join that forum. And only 6 have been admitted. And I'm told more and more countries, even those who used to be the friends of America, Saudi Arabia, they want to join the BRICS. And now we're talking about also de-dollarization, which will be good for us. We don't have to, every time we get a loan, we use the dollars. And the dollar is now scarce. The dollar has somehow diluted our local currencies, and the inflationary pressures have increased. So now, given what we call the rise of the South, I see that the socio-economic development of our country, Tanzania, as well as Africa, increasing and moving from one stage to another. And I predict in the next 60 years, Tanzania, cooperating with China, will be where China is currently.
Indeed, gentlemen, a very insightful discussion indeed, consolidating 60 years of Sino-Tanzania ties from the past to the future for a win-win solution. Thank you all very much for being a part of our discussion today. But that is it for this special edition of Talk Africa. A very big thank you to my guests here in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, Professor Humphrey Moshi, Founding Director at the Center for Chinese Studies and a Professor of Economics at the University of Dar es Salaam. Also, Godwin Gonde, thank you very much, a lecturer at the Center for Foreign Relations.
Well, this has been a joint production by CGTN and Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation. I'm Agnes Tuniga from Tanzania Broadcasting Corporation.
And I'm Beatrice Marshall from CGTN. From all of us here in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, goodbye.